I want you to think of every insane build or clip that you have seen revolving around Borderlands 4 so far. Whether it's one-shots, boss melts, you name it, I guarantee you that they all have something in common that you've probably noticed. It is what I like to call the secret sauce that really amps up the potential of your build for practically nothing. And I am talking about none other than the throwing knife. Ordinance. That's right, we now have throwing knives inside of Borderlands 4, and I would argue that it's the best slash most important piece of gear that can go in your ordinance slot. It would be the throwing knife. Not just any throwing knife, as since what we're talking about here is a purple, there's a little bit more layers and levels of RNG to get the exact throwing knife that we want. And that is the vivisecting throwing knife. The reason why we want this specific one, the first prefix doesn't matter. You need the vivisecting, because the vivisecting prefix is going to give your knife to have these abilities. It's going to give it a damage amp payload. Damage taken by the impacted target is increased by 15% for 5 seconds. Now this is one of those passives that is very strong, because this isn't a buff to any specific type of damage. This is a flat out debuff on the target, amplifying all damage from every source on the target. But not only that, it's also going to give you the penetrator augment. Nice. Damage to the impacted target are automatic critical hits for 5 seconds. My man, you know how insane that is? Think about stuff that can't crit. Or maybe you can spec into specific skills in your skill trees to have maybe your action skill crit, your abilities crit, your skills crit, but you have to spec into it. You throw this at a boss, everything's crit, at least for 5 seconds. That's huge. I'm not saying this makes specking into those types of passives in your skill tree is pointless, but this really helps things that have a harder time critting, or things that can't crit. You know, think of maybe some explosives, right? And the last passive doesn't matter too much. You just need those first two, the damage amplification and the penetrator augment for the guaranteed automatic critical hits. And especially in the right setup like you guys have been seeing online with this game, this throwing knife amplifies the potential of your build through the roof, mainly focused for melting bosses and obviously some healthier badasses or other chunkier enemies. And one of its other pretty strong points, in my opinion at least, is that since you're not using it whatsoever for damage, just its raw utility, if you get one on your playthrough, whether it's your first playthrough through campaign, a second or another, or whatever you may be doing, getting your characters up to level 50, you win. You're done. You don't need to farm a level 50 version of this knife. It's not used for damage. It's only used for utility. Fortunately though, it is a purple, meaning there is no dedicated drop for it. You have to just get lucky with raw world drop luck. May God bless all of us with the best RNG possible, and even more so for the people out there that are missing out on this throwing knife, because what it adds cannot be replicated by anything else in the game. With that being said, we're going to go move over to the testing range over in the Bones of Sanctuary to talk about it just a little bit more in game. Alright, so here's our KOs, and we're going to shoot this dummy a little bit, reload. You see about to 1420, 1600s, and a couple 2000s in there, right? Now, we're going to add in our knife. Look at the numbers increase, alright? You saw that? Saw those all went to 3200? That's because it's guaranteed crits. Obviously, against a testing dummy, the crits are free. They're guaranteed because he ain't going to move. But in a live actual scenario against a boss that's moving, going crazy about, you're not going to be hitting crits like that. So having a knife, a piece of utility that can make them critical hits for you is absolutely massive. And where the craziness really gets going is when you add in some factors to really allow for you to go to actual work, like so. Because just watch. Crits. Look at all those damage. Now, obviously, some of it's scaling. The splash damage, but you see that? You see it? Look, like, it's actually just insane. Do it again. So this time we won't use any throwing knife. All right. You saw how high raw the numbers were. So this time we're not going to throw the throwing knife. And as we're seeing, it's still frying out, but not nearly as much because it's not crits and it's not getting the damage buff. We didn't hit hardly any triple figure numbers right there at all with any of the sticky explosions. So in that scenario, you could literally argue that the knife was close to doubling our damage just in that one scenario, through the damage amplification and through the guaranteed crits. I've said what I wanted to say about this piece of ordnance equipment. Y'all let me know your thoughts and opinions on the vivisecting throwing knife. Maybe consider subscribing or checking out the Twitch channel, twitch.tv/kree. Y'all have a great day. Be safe. I'll see beautiful faces in the next one. Adios.